Good morning, everybody. Matt Moda here to give you my favorite NFL player prop picks. We're talking Monday Night Football tonight, Giants versus Patriots. Should be hopefully a decent game, even though the Giants record stinks with Jackson Dart. They're a little bit fun to watch. We're going to talk about it. I'm only going to have one play for you guys to lock in, and then I had another one that I was very, very close to taking. Before we get into that, let's do a recap on how everything has gone so far this week. And it's really been the tale of two halves so far this week. Thanksgiving was amazing. I went 4-1 on Thanksgiving, up 3 units. But since then, things haven't gone our way. I lost my Black Friday play. The Rhamondre one didn't cash. And then I went 2-3 on the Sunday slate yesterday. So since going up 3 units on Thanksgiving, we're down 2.5 units. Now that still means we are up for the week. And if we have a good night tonight, like if our play hits, then we will be up about 1.5 units on the week, which we'll take. But I was hoping to have a better Sunday. RJ Harvey, we had ridiculous CLV on this one. It closed at like 53.5 rushing yards, and he didn't even come close. Now, his workload wasn't as much as I was expecting, so that one did not go our way. And honestly, I thought he would have been more efficient with the 13 carries that he got. So he wasn't efficient and he didn't get the carries. That's a recipe for not even coming close. He did score 2 touchdowns. So those of you that have him in fantasy had a good day, but did not hit the rushing yards. JSN, I really liked the matchup. It was a really good matchup for him from a coverage perspective, like based on the Vikings defense. I probably didn't put enough emphasis on the fact that the Vikings offense is just utterly putrid and the Seahawks just didn't need to throw, which is what happened in that game. And then the Christian McCaffrey one, the passing offense, people are going to talk about the weather. The 49ers could move the ball. They just, a lot of it went to Kittle and not a lot to McCaffrey. So that one was a loss. The frustrating day in that I thought one of Harvey or JSN would have come through after cashing Bucky Irving and Adonai Mitchell in the early slate, but they didn't. And we'll track the results as they come. So once this week is over, we'll see how we are on the year. As of right now, we're down 9 units. It hasn't been great. I felt really good after Thanksgiving, thought we were going to get ourselves back in the green, and then it's been 2 down days since then. But we can still get ourselves in the green for the week if we cash our play tonight, which we will talk about. Going to use Props Madness to talk through it. And I went with Trayvon Henderson on the rushing yards. Now, I was able to get a really good price here, which is still available. You can get 60 plus at -120, which is what I took. You can get over 60.5 at -115, which I would still take. And then the next best option here was this 63.5 at -114 at FanDuel, which I would still take if that's the best that you got, if you can't use Bet365 or Hard Rock. The biggest thing with Trayvon Henderson, you look at him on the year. He wasn't used a lot at the beginning of the year. It was this weird thing that the Patriots were doing where they just weren't giving him a lot of work and, getting on him about like missed blocks and stuff like that and just not using him in the way that's best for him. It's changed a little bit. On the year, he's averaging only 9.8 rush attempts per game. That's bad. But, we see 5 in week 1, 3 in week 2. He had a good week 3 with 11 rushing attempts, but then 2 this week here. And then we look at the last 5 games, averaging 15 rush attempts per game, which is good. Now, Rhamondre Stevenson missed these 2 games right here, this game against the Bucks, maybe it's these 3 games that Rhamondre Stevenson missed. Regardless, his last 5 games, we're looking at 15 rush attempts per game. And you look at the games without Rhamondre Stevenson, just to really confirm. So it was these 3 games here, 14, 14, and 19. But what I like is the fact that Rhamondre Stevenson returned for this game against the Bengals. We still saw 18 rush attempts for Trayvon Henderson, and he played 65% of the snaps. Now, maybe that was working in Rhamondre back in the offense because he missed 3 games with a toe injury and they kind of wanted to slow roll his return. Or they realized that Trayvon Henderson is the much better, much more explosive back that should get the majority of the carries. And then you use Rhamondre in you use him in the goal line, red zone situations, what they do with Rhamondre Stevenson. And then the other guy, Terrell Burgess, I believe is his name. They kind of use them at the goal line, but you let Trayvon get the line share of the carries, which is what we saw in his return. Again, Rhamondre only had 6 rushing attempts for 5 yards in his first game back, whereas Trayvon, again, had the 19. Now, you look at these last 5 games, some really efficient games, some not so much, but we have seen him hit 60-plus rushing yards in 4 out of his last 5 games. He had one blow-up performance against the Bucks, and then he had 2 that were close. Only 66 yards against the Bengals, 62 yards against the Jets. Now, I'll be honest, I would hope for better than 3.3 and 3.7 yards per carry, which is what he's gotten in the last 2 games. But that was coming off of a 10.5 yards per carry where he had 2 huge bomb touchdown runs. That's probably not going to happen game over game. And then we see a 14 carries here, 3.9, and then a better game here. So we have some efficient games, some non-efficient. That makes sense with an explosive back like Trayvon Henderson. You know, it's not, no one's going to have a Saquon Barkley season like last year where you're just consistently rattling off 60-plus yard touchdown runs. A lot of it is going to be games like this, but 2 straight inefficient games coming off of one where he had 10.5 yards per carry, and the fact that he still hit 60 yards rushing makes me feel pretty good about this one. And the matchup, which is the next half of why I love this play, the matchup is just fantastic. I mean, you look at this Giants running defense, it's just an abomination. 9 of the last 16 running backs have hit their over against the Giants. But Josh Jacobs got hurt in this game. Emmanuel Wilson came in and had an awesome day. Jahmyr Gibbs last week, 219 rushing yards. So yeah, David Montgomery didn't do much, but Jahmyr Gibbs, the explosive back, did. Look at the game against the Bears. DeAndre Swift, 80 rushing yards on only 13 carries. The week before, Christian McCaffrey, 28 rush attempts is crazy. Had 106 yards. 3.8 yards per carry is not great. But on 28 rush attempts, obviously your efficiency is going to go down. In that same game, Brian Robinson went over. Saquon Barkley has only hit 100 rushing yards 1 time this year. He did it against the New York Giants, and it's not even listed here. Tank Bigsby had 100 yards in that same game. Against the Broncos, 81 yards to J.K. Dobbins. Kendre Miller went over his. Alvin Kamara went under. Hampton, 128 rushing yards. You get the point here. This Giants run defense is terrible, and they've gotten worse as the season has gone on. This is on the entire year, rushing yards allowed to the running back. The Giants have allowed the second most at 126 yards per game. We go up since week 6 until now. They are number 1, allowing 141 rushing yards per game. That's terrible. That's 9 yards worse than the second team and like 20 yards worse than their season-long average. And then you go from week 8 until now, and it is 169, very nice, rushing yards per game allowed. So they've just gotten worse as the season has gone on, which makes sense when you see a 219 and 106 and 150 and 128 that the Giants have allowed. So the way that they've been beat deep are by these long, explosive touchdown runs. Like Saquon had a huge one. Jahmyr Gibbs had like 4 touchdowns against the Giants. One of them through the air, but he did have some on the ground as well. So I think that Trayvon is in line to have a very good game. You know, I got burned by taking a rookie running back yesterday that I was expecting more work to come. At least we've seen that work come for Trayvon Henderson. 18 carries with Rhamondre back, I think is very, very exciting. So I love this one on Trayvon Henderson. That is my only official play for this game. Trayvon Henderson, 60-plus rushing yards, minus 120 odds at Bet365. I mentioned that I had a lean. Now, I was really, really, really close to taking this play, which was the receptions for Stefon Diggs. That's over 4.5 at plus 110 odds. This plus 110 is available at 365, at BetMGM, and at Hard Rock. So what I like about Stefon Diggs is, it's been a hit or miss season for him. 6 of 12 games he's gone over. He hit it in week 1, then he missed it in 2 straight, then he cashed it in 2 straight, then he had a rough stretch, hitting it in 1 of 4, then he hit it in 2 out of his last 3 games. He's coming off of a tough game last week against the Bengals. Those of you that remember this game, this was the game in which the tight ends for the Patriots just went off. Hunter Henry had 115 yards on 10 targets, 7 receptions. And in that same game, I can scroll down here and look at players that don't have lines. I guess he's not available, but Austin Hooper went over his over-under in this game as well. So just a really good game for the tight ends, which meant that the guys like receivers, like Stefon Diggs, didn't do so much, right? That's fine. I don't think that's going to happen game over game. And the matchup is very good for his reception prop. The Giants play man coverage at either the second highest or the highest rate in the NFL. It's them and the Lions kind of like switch off between who runs it more. And Stefon Diggs has really, really good target numbers against man coverage. His targets per route run leads the Patriots by a mile, specifically against man coverage. There's a couple things that held me off. If you look at games where teams have played, like the Giants play man coverage about 40% of the time. Nobody really plays man coverage anymore. So if we just even look at games that are like 25% or higher, it's not like he consistently goes over. Only 3 of 7 games against teams that run man coverage 25% or higher. If I go 30% or higher, it's only 3 games, but it's 1 of 3. Really good game against the Jets, 2 down games against the Steelers and the Browns. Another thing that scared me off was Stefon Diggs, and I don't know how much of this is like analysis paralysis by analysis is what I'm looking for, but the left tackle for the Giants, for the Patriots is out. That might also hurt Trayvon Henderson, which I will admit. But Stefon Diggs doesn't get nearly the same amount of target rate when Drake May is pressured. It goes down significantly, his target rate, when Drake May is pressured. So, the Giants, the one good thing they have on defense is a good defensive line. Granted, they're a little bit banged up, but they should be able to bring pressure to Drake May, which maybe that doesn't lead to as much from Stefon Diggs. So I thought between the two, the Trayvon Henderson play was much, much safer, which is why I went with that. And then the other one that I looked at was on the Giants side was Tyrone Tracy Jr. over, it was 17.5 receiving yards. It got bumped up to 18.5. He's only played 2 games with Jackson Dart and without Cam Scatterbo, and he's gone over it in 1 of 2 games. So it's like very, very hit or miss. One game that he went over, he had 19, but he had 4 targets. And then the other game, he didn't have any. He had 1 reception for 0 yards on 2 targets. But if you look at games where it was like Jameis Winston, yeah, he's getting a ton of receiving yards. So you wonder, Jackson Dart coming off of the concussion, is he going to be safer and check the ball down instead of running? Maybe. The Patriots, they're like bottom half in terms of receiving yards allowed to the running back position. They're not terrible, but they're slightly below average. So if you need like a boost 3-leg parlay, then I would add these last 2, the Tyrone Tracy receiving yards and the Stefon Diggs receptions. But in terms of what will officially be tracked as part of my numbers, it's this Trayvon Henderson rushing prop right here. So that's all we got. Hopefully this one comes through and we're able to have a week that is profitable in the green on the week, and then we'll move ourselves on to Thursday Night Football in week 14. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure to bet responsibly, and have a good one.